This is FE Peer Review. The date is December the 23rd, 2024. Santos Bonacci wants you to find your inner Santa Claus. Yes, you heard that right. Mr. Santos Bonacci, some call him Santa, wants you to find your inner Santa Claus, and we will need to listen to a little bit over a minute of what he has to say in order for me to make this video. So I'm sorry if I have to subject you to a minute of his voice, but it's really quite necessary. So here we go.
The story of Santa Claus. Why he comes down the chimney is because this juice or this whatever substance actually passes what's called the claustrum, which is where they got Santa Claus. So it goes down the chimney and back up the chimney.
The claustrum is a little closet just below the cerebrum where all the cerebrospinal fluids, i.e. chrism, is produced. It's called the holy or the Santa Claustrum. So Santa Claus is in your head at the North Pole. Yeah. Well, obviously this is the North Pole. This point here in acupuncture is called Polaris, the North Pole. The Chinese know this, and this is the dome of heaven. The claustrum, which is here, the Santa Claustrum, it releases oils which go down the chimney, down to the solar plexus, or the sacral plexus.
Inside our head, in the skull, we have the cerebrum, and there's a special part in it called the claustrum. This claustrum is right in the middle of our head, and it releases a special kind of brain fluid, an oil. In ancient Greek, this fluid was known as Christos, or the Christ. This wonderful fluid starts from the cerebrum and flows down through the spinal cord.
Well, there you have a little taste of Santos Bonacci. Now, those of you who have been longtime viewers of my channel probably already know about him, and there probably isn't going to be anything new here for you, although I hope you'll stay and watch anyway. And if you do please remember to click the like button. Those of you who are new to my channel, if you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying this, I hope you will subscribe. You may not yet have encountered Santos Bonacci. I think I need to call him Santa Bonacci in this video. He is an interesting character, and what he does is he's got this shtick he uses where he throws together all kinds of words and ideas that have nothing to do with each other and stirs them all together and makes it sound like they do have something to do with each other, only you have to be brilliant like him in order to see all the connections, because, you know, he's so brilliant compared to the rest of us. And when you listen to him, you just get completely lost in the pile that some people call it word salad, you know, the pile of stuff that makes no sense at all. And if you're dazzled by that, you think maybe it actually does mean something and you don't understand it. But obviously this amazing wise man who's feeding this all to you understands it, because he's an amazing wise man. So don't be fooled. In fact, I suggest what you do is what I did here. I mean, that was less than a minute of video where we heard him talking. And in that less than a minute, he said, claustrum, spinal fluids, chrism, Santa Claus, North Pole, acupuncture, Polaris, the Chinese know this, the dome of heaven, Santa Claustrum, oils, chimney, solar plexus, sacral plexus, and chrism is equivalent to Christ. Those were my notes. If you want to go and listen to Santos Bonacci, if you're curious whether he's got anything worthwhile to say, I encourage you to take the notes the way I did. Don't let him just go on and then try to remember what he said. Stop the video every time he introduces a word or a phrase you didn't expect or don't see the connection, and write it down, and then try to see if there is a connection. Chances are there'll be no connection whatsoever, because that's what he does, is he tries to connect a bunch of things that have nothing to do with each other. He calls it syncretism, and this is what how syncretism is described in Wikipedia: the practice of combining different beliefs and various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions. What that really means is it involves shoving things together that never had anything to do with each other and trying to pretend that they do. And that's what Bonacci does. And he does it in a way where he makes sure to include something from every possible tradition he can find. So he's got the Chinese, he's got the Christians, he's got the yoga references. You listen to him and you'll find he's got references to everything. Native American ideas. It's all there. He wants to appeal to everyone because he wants everyone following him. I guess I'm interpreting here. I don't know what he wants. I can't hear his inner mind, fortunately. But that's how it looks from the outside. I'm just going from what I see on the outside. He wants everybody at his feet. So that's what I suggest you do if you're interested in looking into Santos Bonacci, is you take it all with a heavy dose of skepticism and you take it apart piece by piece. We're going to do a little bit of that now. Let's take a look at the word claustrum. Claustrum is an ancient Roman word, ancient Latin word, goes back to the Romans. And I had some pictures here. This masonry you see, this is called claustrum. It's claustra. It's a type, claustra is the plural for claustrum. It's a type of masonry where the bricks are laid up so that there are gaps and you can get airflow and light coming through these gaps, while nonetheless you still have an enclosure. In ancient Roman times, the word claustrum was a architectural enclosure, typically something like a courtyard, an atrium. These were claustra, and a single one was a claustrum. The word cloister in English, C-L-O-I-S-T-E-R, derives from claustrum, and the cloister is a courtyard. Usually it's a courtyard in a monastery or a convent. So that's the root of the word claustrum. So that was going back to ancient Roman times. In the early 1800s, a gentleman by the name of Carl Friedrich Burdach, who was something of a father of biology. I think he may have coined the term biology. He was a particularly brilliant researcher on the human brain, among the first to really start to decipher the structure, physical structure of the brain. And he actually named many of its parts. Among those parts, he chose the name for the claustrum, because it was, I think, because it was enclosed on all sides by other parts of the brain. I think that was why he chose that word. So that is the connection between the claustrum in the brain and its etymological root, which is a courtyard. Nowhere at this point do we see any link to Santa Claus. But I'll show you where the Santa Claus comes from. Saint Nicholas. Some 1400 years before Carl Friedrich Burdach, there was a gentleman by the name of Nicholas living in Greece. And he was a very revered man by local Christians, to the point where he became a saint. He was the saint, the patron saint of, among others, repentant thieves, children, toy makers. And he had the legendary habit of secret gift giving, which gave rise to the folklore of Santa Claus, or Saint Nick, through Sinterklaas. So here was Saint Nicholas, and you'll note that the name Nicholas has nothing to do with claustrum. His name, Saint Nicholas, in the 16th century Netherlands, the Dutch area, the colloquial language of the Dutch, pronounced Saint Nicholas as Sinterklaas. They kind of dropped the Nick. And Klaus is also the same as the German name Klaus, K-L-A-U-S, which is short for Nikolaus, which is the German form of Nicholas. So Sinterklaas is Saint Klaus, or Saint Nicholas. When the Dutch came over to North America in 100 years later, 1600s, they brought their Christmas traditions with them and their language. But they also came in contact with other languages, in particular English, German, and French. And so Sinterklaas gradually in North America became Santa Claus. And as Santa Claus, it has spread around the world again. So Klaus, Santa Claus, is the same as Klaus in German, K-L-A-U-S, and the same as Nicholas. And none of those names have anything to do with claustrum. The connection that Bonacci made here, that Santa Bonacci made, is entirely of his own fabrication and does not exist in language or in history. In other words, it's a complete lie. There's no connection between the claustrum and Santa Claus. Sorry to disappoint you. The claustrum exists. I won't say whether Santa does or not. That's for you to decide. Anyhow, that was an example of how Bonacci creates false connections in order to make there appear to be deep knowledge on his part about things that you never had any clue about. It's a lie. Don't believe it. you can take apart all of this garbage. I'm going to show you another example here. I'll put a link to this video in the pinned comment and in the description. This is one of SciManDan's videos. He's done several on Santos Bonacci. And this is just one where Santos Bonacci is trying to relate a whole bunch of words together that really have nothing to do with each other. Like pool and loop. Ridiculous, non-existent connections. Play and pray. That's another. You go to the etymology of both of these words. They have nothing to do with each other whatsoever. But he tries to make it sound as if they do because he's so much more wise and insightful than the rest of us. So that's the Santos Bonacci and his techniques. He tries to cast himself as a spiritual teacher. If you watch a few of his videos, you'll see he clearly wants to be seen as a teacher character, a spiritual guide. That's what he's trying to be for people, a spiritual guide. Watch a few of his videos and it's pretty obvious. Well, among other things that he advocates, this may or may not be for your taste. I'll leave a link to this video. Among other things he advocates is urine drinking. He's a great proponent of urine drinking, and these gentlemen here got him to talk about it to them and recorded what he had to say on the subject. So I'll put that in the description as well. You can decide whether or not that is important. And then lastly, I'd like to, here he is being very yogic. So I'm going to play a little bit of this, but I'm going to leave the volume off and we can just read the captions here. This is him doing his spiritual teacher shtick. The ones that are blessed are the ones who are peaceful and meek. Peaceful and meek, I want you to remember that. And who actually arrive at the top chakras through the heart chakra and activate from the third eye, etc., etc. Peaceful and meek. I'm going to leave this run in the background here. This is another video. MCToon made a phone call to Santos Bonacci and got Santa talking. And he had some interesting things to say, and I'm not going to turn the volume on. You can just follow along and look at how meek and peaceful this gentleman appears to be, and probably doesn't take great skills in lip reading to figure out most of what he's saying. So there you go. You can watch that while I talk about the last thing I wanted to touch on here, which was Jim Carrey. That little introduction from Jim Carrey. I'm not a fan of Jim Carrey per se, but I enjoy him. I find him very entertaining. I think he's obviously tremendously skilled and talented in his work. He's funny when he wants to be funny. He's quite a good actor. He's got a lot of pathos. He can play he can bring a lot of good feeling to his work. And as an actor and comedian and entertainer, I very much admire him. As far as I know, he's a pretty decent human being. I haven't heard anything terrible about him, in contrast with some celebrities these days. But like quite a few celebrities I've noticed, he's comfortable to go out in public and talk about things that he really knows next to nothing about. And I have a bit of a problem with that. Now, I'm no expert on a lot of subjects, but if I wander down to the local pub and spout a bunch of nonsense to the guy on the bar stool next to me, it's not going to make a big deal in the world. But when world famous, highly admired people go and publicly talk about things that they just don't know anything about, I feel like that's not really good. I think they need to exercise a little more self-consciousness, to be aware of the impacts of their behavior, the consequences of what they're doing. And I guess they don't. I suspect it has something to do with the kind of confidence you need to have to succeed in professions like those. I mean, it might be easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you know a lot about a lot of things, which you actually don't. A little bit too much self-confidence, perhaps. So that's my thoughts on Jim Carrey there. If I had his ear, I would try to find a way to politely suggest he be a little bit more cautious about the things he talks about in public. I mean, whatever he wants to believe in private's his business, but it's the public aspect that's tricky. That's a difficult point. Anyway, I think that's probably everything I need to say about Santos Bonacci. Again, if you're curious and searching and looking for truth and meaning and a better understanding of the world, and you think you might find something with Santos Bonacci, you can see on the screen here the kind of person you're actually dealing with. He succeeds in covering it up pretty well a good part of the time, but MCToon has a real knack for getting people to expose their true character, and I admire Toon for that. He's really probably as talented in his own way as Jim Carrey is in his way. Enough now. I'll call this a finished video. Santa Bonacci here wishes you a happy new year, and so do I. If you enjoyed this video, do remember to click the like button. If you haven't already subscribed and you're enjoying this, please do subscribe. I always welcome new subscribers. And most of all, my favorite thing, leave a comment. I love to see what people have to say about this stuff. You guys always come up with things that I didn't think of. So that's all for now. Bid you all a very pleasant evening, and I'll go back to petting my cat and say goodbye.